Childhood trauma can be a bitch, a real live bitch on your back. And that's the only way I can say it because, it can be something that's just like, hey, 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 and you can't shake it. But writing about it helps you in so many ways. People are already journaling about their trauma. So they have books already that they don't even realize can be a published book to help someone. But sometimes there's a fear. There's this fear of what if everybody knows what I've been writing in my journal. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's okay. And here are some tools and tips to help you do what you need to do to get your story out. Now, the first thing that you should do when you are starting a book about childhood trauma, your personal story, this experience that you've had with someone or a thing that just traumatized you so much that it stays with you and it kind of like cripples you, and then you're fearful. So, getting therapy is a way to start dealing with actually getting the story out. So you'll be able to talk to someone that you don't know. They don't know your personal story. You're just sharing it with them. This is a way for you to get started and comfortable with telling the story. Now, some people, as I mentioned before, may have journals where they've been writing it out, and that's their release mechanism. That's their way of getting the story out. But you also should talk to somebody so that you have some tools in your tool belt so that you will know how to go about dealing with things that come up in the process of writing your book. You'll be thinking, oh, yeah, I'm fine. I could talk about my story. Maybe that's with, your very close circle. But then when you start actually sharing this story and breaking down things in detail with people outside of your circle, then that's where the challenge comes in. That's where, there may be some crying, and you want to be able to stand before someone who may have been in that same experience and say, okay, I can help them. I am stronger now. I have some tools and resources that, I use, and I can help this person and refer this person. One way to get therapy is basically, talk to a therapist. There are other different types of therapy. There's hypnotherapy, there's listening to audio as well, things that just kind of help your soul, the internal you, your mental, to help you get prepared for this book that you're going to publish that is going to help someone. So, you might try out one way of doing therapy and then it'd be like, oh no, that's not the way for me. But keep your mind open to, okay, this is not the only way to get therapy. There are other ways, There are retreats, there are spas, there are, going and sitting on a mountain. There's so many different ways to get therapy. You can exercise. You can have a ritual with yoga, and this is very therapeutic. It's a way of just helping you to balance what has happened and where you are currently, right? And it's helping you so that the end result is I get the story out and then I help someone. Another thing that you want to be able to do is to talk to someone, a close friend. And you've probably already been doing this, someone who knows about what happened, your experience, and they're in your corner. They are supporting you, they are listening to you. This is someone that you want to be comfortable enough to share the entire story as you recall it. So that this is a safe space. This is someone that is supporting you along this entire journey. This is somebody that, in addition to you jotting down different things in your journal or what have you, you can confide in this person. This person has your back. So you want to be able to discuss it with someone, right? You're in therapy or you've gotten your therapy, your resource, you're building up that muscle. And so now you actually have someone to talk to about what you've written, because you want to get comfortable, because as you put the book out, you are going to talk to more people. And so just being comfortable, just talking to someone is a good start. So confide in someone that you really trust, that you can trust. This is a good place to start for speaking about the trauma. Now, once you went through your therapy, whatever method that is, you're comfortable to talk to somebody about it other than the therapist, right? You've gotten your little notes jotted down in your journal. And so now you want to face it head on. You want to be able to address the issue. So if the issue is with someone, you do not have to say, oh, I forgive this person. You don't have to do all that. What you are doing is being able to stand in front of the person and say, hey, I didn't like when this happened, and this is how it has affected me. Now, you may get some feedback that you don't really want. You may have already been through this process and it didn't go so well. But this is key to freeing yourself. You are basically saying, hey, this has happened. This is how I experienced it. And you know what? Listen, hear what the person has to say. Now, it may not be what you wanted to hear, but listen at what they said. Now, there's one thing that I do with my mother that works well for us. I say, I'm going to tell you something, but I don't need you to say anything. I just want you to listen. And that means she doesn't have to talk. She doesn't even have to give me a response to what I said, but I'm allowed to say whatever I have to say, right? So you give the person the courtesy and respect to say, hey, this is your turn to talk. I spoke and I said what I had to say. Now you say what you have to say, and you listen to them, right? And you may not like to hear what they have to say or where their mind was at during the trauma, but this is a way for you each to have the conversation. And I'm not saying you're going to leave the conversation with resolve, but at least you had an opportunity to say what you had to say. They said what they wanted to say. And now you can move on to the next step, because now you're free. You are free. And I'm not going to say that, there's not going to be little triggering things along the way. I don't want to give you that impression. But this is such a powerful way of doing things. I myself address things head on. I just say whatever I have to say and then I move on. I can't be in between because it doesn't work for my emotions, my internal well being, right? For me to move forward. So I address things and then that's that. So I'm hoping that this is helping you, but trust me, the therapy with the tools that you get, talking about with someone, and then addressing it head on. What has happened? What transpired? Your story, your part, their part, and then you can move on to the next part. Now, in this book of childhood trauma, you are recalling it. And what's going to be so great is that you are going to have the method of therapy to put at the end of your book, because you've shared the story, you've talked about the experiences, and now, yes, I got therapy. And so here I am sharing this story with you, and you can do the same thing. If I did it, you can too, right? Because this is really about helping someone. Tell the truth. The story needs to be the truth. And it's going to be the way you experienced it, right? And therapy is going to help you determine what are the facts, what is true, and what is not true. What were you thinking and what actually happened? This is all going to be broken down, right? In therapy. So that way you can include that part, right? You don't have to say who your therapist is, but you can say how you might have been thinking one thing and then it was another thing, or vice versa, right? This is what happened and then it really did happen, right? So we're not saying that you are lying or anything, but just telling the entire story as it happened is key, right? Because facts are facts. The truth is the truth. And you want to really just tell the truth. That's so important, you know. Sometimes I know as kids, we will perceive things. And then as an adult, it's like, oh, okay, that was happening. You just, it clicks for you as an adult. Like, oh, I was thinking this. Oh, but it was really that, right? So I think we've all experienced those things where, I thought my parents left me at the fair. I thought they just left me, but I walked away, right? So I had to spend the whole time of the fair in this booth, this security booth. So I never did get to experience the fair. It was like I think my first time going to the fair, but because I had walked off and I wasn't paying attention, I'm thinking they left me. No, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. So I ended up in the security booth and unhappy and crying and all of that, right? So yeah, perception. So that's just an example. And it's funny now, but back then I don't think it was so funny, right? So yeah, so telling the truth, that is key. One last thing I'd like to say is that, people don't like to hear this, but say you have 100 people, I've said this before, 10% of them are going to read your book. They're actually going to read it. And, maybe half of them are going to give you feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. So, or maybe the 10 will say, hey, I love this book, and they'll give you a review. I wrote a book and I put a lot of things in there about my experiences, but I write like no one's going to read my books. And I operate in that way so that I can get the story out. I don't worry about who's going to read it, what they're feeling. Their personal feelings are their feelings, but my story is my story. So I just operate as if no, they're not going to read the book. So I can put in there my truth and I just keep it pushing, right? If I'm challenged about it, well, okay, we can talk about it, but this is my truth and my story, right? If they want to write their story and their truth, they can do that, right? So I don't worry about how people are feeling about what I write in the books, the subject matter, or any of that. I just write. I write the book and I get that out because it's therapeutic for me. It makes me happy. It gives me joy. And that's it. So don't worry about, oh my God, what if they read my book? That's fine. They're reading your book. They purchased your book. They're reading it. Yay. That supports you. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. Take care.